You ever looked into your genetics, and do people ever ask where your genetics are?
I have. You know, I've done many DNA tests. I've done one with a company called Mudo, who really dived into my DNA, and they found a gene called it's an MSTN deformity actually, and you find it in the Belgian blue cows, the big muscly cows that just have muscles on muscles and muscles. So they've got the MSTN gene, and they've got type 1. And humans can have it as well. They can have type 1, which is very, very rare. I think there's been a few cases of people, you see babies with muscles on them, but they don't live very long. But then there's a type 2 MSTN gene where they basically, it limits the amount of myostatin you produce. And myostatin limits how much muscle mass your skeletal frame can hold. So if you've got no myostatin, there's no limit to how big you can get. So I've got this gene where I don't produce as much myostatin as any other person, and they call it the HERCULES gene. So and it's super rare. So basically, I can hold a lot more muscle mass than any other normal person. And I suppose it was just the stars were aligned that I decided to become the world's strongest man, and I had this gene to sort of make it possible.
Does anyone in your family have it, or is it kind of a mutation for you?
I believe, sorry, I just pulled my mic.
That's right.
I'll put it back on.
All right.
I believe that it runs in the family. I mean, I found out, once I had this, it's a funny story, because once I had this sort of DNA test done, I went and had others done, and I found out that I was a large percentage of sort of Scandinavian, like Swedish, Switzerland. And my mum and dad are British. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. So we had the conversation with, my mum and everything, and it turns out my mum was adopted.
Oh, wow.
So I actually found out that my mum was adopted from Switzerland, or
Sweden, or whatever,
Sweden,
the Nordics. Yeah.
Via my nan, and that's how I found out. So I'm actually a Viking, got the gene. And you look at, and then I'm pretty certain, looking at my mum and dad, my dad's big, my dad's 6'3" nearly, 14 stone guy, he's in his 60s now, but his day, he was a big guy. And then I look at my mum, and she only has to lift a weight, and her arms blow up, and she's got calves as big as mine. And I'm not joking, they are as big as mine.
Wow.
So I think the gene has come from my mum's side, from the Viking sort of side. And I can see it in my brothers, because they're very thick set. My brother was a pro rugby player. And then my daughter, who is 10 years old right now, nearly turning 11, and she's huge. She's the biggest in the year, tallest and width. And they had a sports day the other day, and she won a few things, but then she said, well, it's funny you say that, Dad, because we had an arm wrestling competition after. I was like, right, and did you get involved? You got stuck in? She's like, yeah. I says, did you beat the girl? She's like, yeah. I was like, what about the boys? She's like, yeah. It's like, what, you beat all the boys in your year? She's like, yeah, thrashed them, no problem. So I've got my 10-year-old daughter who's twice as strong as the boys in a year, She's a big girl.
Is strong woman a thing, or will it be?
It is a thing, yeah.
It is, yeah.
So I'm pretty certain that she's got the gene, and I can see it in my lad as well. He's just started doing some sports, but he's got the bulk around his ribs, and he's got his shoulders sort of starting to sprout out. And he's only 6 years old, so.
Why?
I think it's a hereditary thing.
And the Nordics are typically successful in strongman, right?
Yeah, the Icelandics, the Swedish, yeah. They've won a lot of titles between them. Norway. I'd say they've got more titles than any other part of the world.
That gene, maybe, or variants of that gene.
I think it is. I think it's a Viking gene. Yeah, it's like the MSTN gene could possibly come from the Viking sort of place in the global map.